So you just got Star Wars Battlefront 2, maybe because it was free on the Epic Games Store, and now you're looking for the best tips to help you get started. Well, look no further. That's exactly what today's video is about. Welcome back to the channel, guys. If you're new, be sure to subscribe and get notified for all future Battlefront 2 tips and tricks. We have plenty more on the way for all of you new players, so be sure to stay tuned so you don't miss a single one. Today's video is all about getting started in Battlefront 2. These are 10 noob tips that you should know going into the Battlefront. So without further ado, let's get started on the list. The first tip you want to be aware of is that there is no skill-based matchmaking in Star Wars Battlefront 2. The online matchmaking in this game is very random. You will sometimes be placed with players that are similar to your level, and you'll also be placed with players that are far higher or far lower than your level. The same can be true for the opponents the game puts you against. It's not uncommon to have your entire team be low-level noobs while you go against high-level veterans. That can sometimes happen. This is a result of a lack of skill-based matchmaking. It will not take your player level into account, and you will just be randomly match-made with other players who are looking for games at that time. If you happen to be put in a game where you are seriously outclassed and your team is just getting stomped, not a huge deal. Just back out, try to find another more balanced lobby, and hopefully that one works out better. The next tip is the fact that your heads-up display can be customized. There is a lot going on the screen during gameplay. There's a lot to keep track of, such as your heat bar, the kill feed, the point log. It can get pretty chaotic. In your settings menu, you can actually change elements in your HUD, such as removing them or changing their position, and you can really customize it to look the way you want. On a lot of my videos, I keep getting the same question: how do I get the black background on my abilities and my health bar? And that's all done in the HUD settings menu. For that specific setting, you want to go down to high contrast and turn that all the way up to 100%, and then you'll get that black background. Moving on, our next tip is about the weapons in Battlefront 2, and a question that I see a lot of new players ask is whether or not there are secondary weapons in this game. There are no secondaries, but what you can do is equip certain star cards, like the flash pistol for the assault class, that behaves like a secondary weapon, where when you use the ability, it will replace your primary weapon and you can freely switch between the two. Again, it's not a true secondary because it uses up an ability slot and you're technically using an ability to get that weapon, but the principle is almost the same. These abilities include the Vanguard ability for the Assault, the Flash Pistol as mentioned before, the Stinger Pistol for the Specialist, and the Sentry for the Heavy class. These abilities all bring out what is technically a secondary weapon, but there are no true secondaries in Battlefront 2. Keeping up with the theme of the weapons, this next tip has to do with landing your shots more consistently in this game, since this is something a lot of newer players struggle with. So in the Star Wars universe, their blaster bolts have a travel time that is significantly slower than real-world bullets. In Battlefront 2, the developers made these bolts as accurate to the movies as possible, so when you're firing on a target, you have to take this travel time into consideration. This is what's known as leading your shots. If your target is a good distance away from you and they're moving, you have to place your shots a little bit ahead of where your target is going. Otherwise, you'll be behind them consistently and you will miss every single shot. The amount you have to lead by is determined by how far away the target is and by how quickly they are moving. If the target is further away, you have to lead by a greater amount to give that shot time to get to the target. The closer they are, the less you have to lead by, but if you're finding yourself consistently missing your shots, try leading a little bit more ahead than you normally do. Every blaster in Battlefront 2 is different and has a different velocity for the shots, so try experimenting with the different blasters and see which one works best for you while leading. Personally, I found the Assault class's EL-16 HFE the best weapon to practice leading my shots with, as the bolts come out relatively slower compared to the other weapons, and it really lets you see how far you need to lead. Our next tip has to do with one of the most popular aspects of Battlefront 2, and that is the hero gameplay. So you're playing a round of Supremacy or Galactic Assault. You finally saved up 4,000 battle points to get either Luke or Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader, and you're ready to slay with a lightsaber. Well, the first thing you should know going into a round as a hero is that the heroes are not invincible. Just because you have a lightsaber or a powerful blaster does not mean you cannot get taken out very quickly, because you can. And all it takes is either an enemy hero or a large group of enemy troopers, and it can be done very quickly. Heroes and villains are very powerful units that can either support the team or go seek and destroy the enemy, but they are best played smart, and you can't just rush in there recklessly and expect to get a big kill streak. The heroes and villains in Battlefront 2 are all unique and each have their own skill set and each need to be played their own way. So my best recommendation for getting good with any particular hero is to get some good practice time in the Heroes vs. Villains game mode, or just take them offline into arcade and see what they're capable of. And that actually segues really nicely into my next tip, and that's that the heroes can actually have 1 vs. 1 showdowns in the Hero Showdown game mode. This is actually a niche within the niche that I love uploading here at the channel. We have 1 vs. 1s very often, and if you're interested in that kind of content, be sure to subscribe and get notified because those are very popular videos and we always have a lot of fun with them. But like I just mentioned, once you feel like you've gotten adequate practice with any particular hero, you can take them into Hero Showdown and try having a 1 vs. 1 duel and seeing how you stack up against another player. This isn't always a given, as the Hero Showdown mode is actually a 2 vs. 2 mode, but if you get lucky and are paired up with respectful players, a 1 vs. 1 is definitely possible. Check out the video popping up in the top right to see how I initiate a 1 vs. 1 in the Hero Showdown mode. Moving along, we got another tip for the heroes and villains, specifically for the lightsabers and Palpatine. If you played the classic Battlefront 2 from 2005, or even the first game in the EA franchise, the concept of stamina might be a new one to you. All the heroes and villains who use lightsabers, and Palpatine because of his lightning, have a stamina bar. Stamina is what lets a lightsaber hero either attack or block, and in Palpatine's case it lets him shoot lightning. When the stamina is completely depleted, they can't do any of those actions and they have to wait for the stamina to come back. When you're playing as one of these heroes, always keep an eye on the stamina bar just as much as you watch your health, and you have to manage it just as closely. Every hero's stamina works differently too. For example, Darth Vader, when he runs out of stamina, will take a long time before it starts to come back, unlike Rey, whose stamina starts to come back almost immediately and fills back up very quickly too. Like I mentioned before, you want to spend ample time practicing with each hero and figuring out what they're capable of, what they're not capable of, and then taking that knowledge into the game. Moving away from heroes for a moment, this next tip has to do with your star cards and the fact that they can be comboed. We'll have a full video on just this topic that you can find linked in the description, and it'll be popping up in the top right now, but effectively combining star cards are the best way to max out your unit's efficiency. Whether it's the officer class or one of your favorite heroes, they all have the ability to combine their star cards and maximize their effectiveness. I'll give you a quick example. Leia Organa has 2 star cards that boost her middle ability, Rapid Fire. The first one, Rebel Heart, will increase her damage reduction while she has the ability active, and the second one, Relentless Firing, will let her keep that ability active for longer. So, by combining these 2 cards, you give Leia extended damage reduction as long as she has the Rapid Fire ability active. Of course, the effectiveness of these effects all come down to the level of your star cards. If they're common or uncommon, the effect won't be that powerful, but once you start getting into the rare and epic ranges for your star card, you'll really start to notice a difference in how effective the star cards are. Moving on, our next tip has to do with the vehicles in Battlefront 2, and this tip will help you take out more vehicles and take them down faster. Just like heroes, vehicles are very powerful units with more health and more damage output. A good tank or ATST player can absolutely decimate the enemy team, so you gotta have a way to take out those tanks as quickly as you can. Just like headshots deal more damage to troopers and heroes, vehicles also have a weak spot that deal more damage when you hit them. The weak spots will vary depending on which vehicle you're fighting, but you'll usually find them in the back of the chassis. For example, with the ATST specifically, the weak spot is right in the back of that head section, where the pilots sit. Getting behind an ATST or a tank is a good way to take them out quickly. Just be careful that they don't keep track of you and potentially run you over. Destroying vehicles is a great way to get a huge boost to your battle points, as you get points for not only causing damage to it, but if you're the player who ends up destroying the vehicle, you'll get a nice vehicle destruction bonus, which will go a long way towards getting the next hero or reinforcement. I don't recommend taking on an ATST all by yourself though, they are pretty powerful. This last tip has to do with the maps in Battlefront 2, and map knowledge is probably the best tip I can recommend for any new player. There are over 25 unique unique maps in Battlefront 2, and it's going to take a significant amount of playtime to memorize them all and get comfortable playing in them, but once you do memorize them, I guarantee you will have a far better time in not only gameplay, but also your spot in the scoreboard. The less time you spend thinking about where you want to go or where the most advantageous position is on the map, the better off you'll be, because you'll just know it. You'll know exactly where to go and how to play once you get there. And that will immediately give you a significant advantage over another player who does not know the map as well as you do. You'll know where all the best spots for cover are, you'll know where the flank routes are, where you need to go to escape danger, or you can effectively position yourself in preparation for the next phase. Map knowledge is huge in Battlefront 2, and it will take some time for you newer players to get used to it, but once you start memorizing the maps, you'll have a much better time, I promise. And with that, those are 10 noob tips for Star Wars Battlefront 2 players who are just getting started. If you guys found this video helpful at all, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you didn't find it helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs down. Either way, consider subscribing and getting notified to stay in the loop with more Battlefront 2 tips, tricks, and news. But that's going to do it from me. I appreciate you all stopping by the bazaar, and I will see you out on the battlefront. Peace.